That's my mantra. I'm unable to share my screen, so I think somebody should have to enable me to do that.
Yeah, so I'm gonna.
Right. Okay, doc. Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay? Right. Okay. Yeah. We 15 minutes into the session. So, as usual, I like to keep it simple. I don't know if I'm speaking to the same audience I spoke to a week ago, but I suppose not, because these are two, being a Scrum Master is fairly different from being a BA. So a bit about me. So I've been in this business for a while. I would say more than 10 years, doing consulting work for a few brands, household brands, especially within financial services. I started this agile journey about 12, 13 years ago at a company called Capita, Children's Services in Bedford. And I've not looked back since then. I've been a BA, I've been a PO, I've been a Scrum Master, I've been a delivery manager, I've been an agile coach. And interestingly, I don't recall that there were two places that this agile thing was practiced exactly the same way. So again, if you go back to the Scrum guide, is not a guide for no reason. It's a guide because it's a guide. So it's not like it's cast in stone, and as such, everyone will put their twists to it. Which doesn't matter from my point of view. The ethos remains the same. Agility remains the same. How you bring it about could vary. So far as you are achieving the same outcome, I think that's what matters the most. So I offer consulting services through a company called Blue Tech Consulting Limited. I live in Northfleet, and I'm passionate about technology, user experience, and design. I didn't include there that I'm an ardent Arsenal fan. Yeah, just for the record. So, disclaimer, as always. The sentiment I'll be expressing are my personal sentiments. They are things that have served me well. They are by no means the Bible or the way. Is one of the so many ways. Okay, so your experience might be different from mine, and there's no problem with that. There are a million ways to skin a cat, but at the end of the day, you get a skinned cat, right? Some approaches may be more efficient than some. I mean, if we go back to it, agility is about learning, adapting, isn't it? So we learn and we adapt accordingly. So, and the drill is that as I go on, move through the slide. The slides are just guides. It's just to help me, so I'm not all over the place, but they just so very superficial. So by all means, if you have any questions, shout or indicate with a raise of a hand. I'll much rather I take those questions as we go along than, having to wait till the end. So I'll whisk through this quickly, maybe 15, 20 minutes, so that we can have ample time for questions. This is no Scrum Master training talk. It's just a very high level. It's just a very high level. Sorry, one sec. My apologies. So it's just a very high level view on aspiring Scrum Masters. Okay, so what are the things you should pay attention to, what you should know, which is very high level because the taste is in the pudding, as they say. So you could know all of this. You could even pass your PSM. Okay, you could pass your PSM level 1 and 2. You could pass your Scrum, which other one? The other one, CSM. You could pass all of those exams. You could read up and pass. And yet you could get on a live project and things will be really, really difficult for you. So, these are very high level stuff. Yeah, is not a deep dive session at all. So those are the disclaimers and the ground rules. Okay, so let's do this. So why Agile methodology to start with? A bit of history. In the 50s, software development started emerging as a very, very clear-cut area of specialization. And way back then, if you remember the waterfall method, it was very, very, there was a reason why it was called waterfall. When water falls, it comes that way and it hardly goes back. So it's very methodical. You often would finish one stage before getting on with the next stage, and so on and so forth. So from initiation to design to specification, depending on what textbook you're reading, you see different models of waterfall. And so on and so forth. And it was very costly. It was very expensive because requirements specification could start in January, and they have to write up all the requirements by, say, February, after 2 months. Then thereafter, they start designing, okay, whatever that looks like. And they could design for another month, depending on the nature of the project. And by the 4th month, they come off with, a booklet, and they hand it off to developers, and they could start coding afterwards. But imagine if by month 4, when development has started and something needed to change, then it becomes very cumbersome, very expensive. At times they could can the whole thing altogether. Millions of dollars was wasted. We just go down the drain because months development had ensued only for the company or the business to find out that they're not solving the right problem. So, and that happened up until early 2000s, 2000 and 2001-ish. And a few people came together and the notion of agility came into being. I won't go into all that. You probably know that already. And the philosophy had to change. And of course, we know what Agile Manifesto, which was a turning point, okay? So working software over documentation, people over processes, and all that. You know, you can read up on it because it's a classic interview question for Scrum Masters. So Agile came to be, and Scrum Guide came to be as well, and the rest is history, as we know it today. So Scrum Guide made a very strong case for Agile, and of course, in today's world, you see all sorts paraded, or as Agile way of working. It's interesting. Maybe something I should emphasize is the fact that when you become a Scrum Master, and as you move from project to project, you see all sorts of absurdities that is peddled in the name of Agile. All sorts. Everybody is an Agile expert in today's world. Was it last week? My very senior program people, they came together and they were just pushing some, and I was, you can't be estimating and story pointing at the same time. You have to stick with one. I mean, you see all sorts, really. Let me not digress. So that was the driver. That was what brought about Agile methodology, Agile way of working, Agile thinking, because the erstwhile methodology, even though it served the community well for as long as it lasted, but there was just too much wastage. It wasn't as fluid, as responsive to change as it could be. And money, lots of money was wasted, went down the drain because of the inflexibility. And it didn't engender, communication. It was just a case of, so I've done my bit, I chuck it over the fence to the next set of people. They probably didn't even communicate with each other as effectively as they should. All a developer needed, or a team of developers, was just a list of requirements, and they were just coding away. And they could have coded for months. And when they demoed, it was something completely different. And perhaps they will have to start all over again. So there was a strong case for agility and Agile way of working. Any questions so far? Any questions?
Yeah, we're going to ask if you want the questions now as you go along, or at the end of the program.
Let's do it. I think I made the point earlier.
Oh,
I think it's easier to deal with as we go along.
Okay.
So do we have any questions?
Can you put your questions that you can ask your questions, and let somebody raise your hands, please. If you have any question to ask, you can raise your hands, or if you want to type on the chat box, that will also be okay.
Okay, let's go on. So next slide. But before then, sorry?
There's a question.
Okay.
There's a question in the chat box.
Okay. Okay, so what is the difference between estimating and story pointing? Okay, so there are both ways of putting some form of, is a measure of, I don't want to be dragged into the argument of time and hours and all that. Now, estimation borders on hours. So, and number of days. So in the past, I've seen people estimate stories as small, medium, large, X large. And small could mean half a day of work. You know, medium could be full day or 2 days. Large could be whatever. So estimation kind of ties into duration. Okay. And I bet it could vary from project to project, but estimation for the most part borders on putting a sense of how long it will take to deliver a piece of work. Story pointing is a completely different paradigm. So story pointing first uses the Fibonacci series, which is, if that's so it's 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 20, and so on and so forth. It's a mathematical algorithm called Fibonacci series. And so that's the first thing. And it also adopts the notion of relative complexity. So what that means is that if this is a one-story point, okay, how does it compare to that? Okay, is this from, based on the user story, the dependencies and all that is in the user story, the acceptance criteria and all that, the integration, all of that. Is it any more complicated than this? If the answer is yes, okay, to what degree? Then this will not be a 2 or a 3. It would be something bigger. Now, is it an exact science? Maybe not. So there's a science to it, there's an art to it, there's a getting used to, and there's a maturity of the team to story pointing, because it takes a bit of time, and a team can get to a point where they look at a story or a piece of requirement and say, oh, that's a 5, or that's an 8, or that's in fact a 1. So bottom line is that the outcome is the same, the method is different, but you can't have the two concurrently. I don't know if that helps. Yep. Okay. Is it like you estimate before you story point? Like again, you either using one of the two. Now, a caveat. I once worked on a project where at epic level, again, debatable, was an epic. You won't find an epic in Scrum guide. I mean, these are just things people spun up for reason of convenience. You know, epic, a big story, fantastic. Is in the Scrum guide? Is not. You only have user story. So whatever epic represents and means to you, good luck. You know, if it works for you, it works for you. So I worked on a project years ago where at epic level, we estimated. Okay, so I can say, oh, I want to build this capability, maybe payment gateway as an epic. Okay, is an X large. from estimation standpoint. Now, what that X large means in that context was that it would take 3 sprints of 10 team members, and it will cost £50,000. Okay, so estimation was used to plan and cost. But when we start sprinting and start breaking down that epic into smaller user stories that we take into sprint, then the notion of story pointing kicks in. Now, so those are the nuances. Again, it could differ from project to project. But ideally, you shouldn't be doing the two. You stick with one. You should stick with estimation or story pointing. You know, if you don't, then it will screw up your reporting. It will screw up your, you know. And I've been on projects or programs where you have more than one Scrum team. Whilst one team is estimating, another one is story pointing. So how do you compare? So if I said my velocity as team A is 20, I story point. And another team says, oh, their velocity is what is it? So it's advisable to stick with one. Okay, I think there are more questions. Is it like you estimate before? Okay, I think I've answered that. An epic level, you can t-shirt size. And story level, you can story point. Better still. I think firstly, you story point. That way you decide how to point your stories in the organization. That is 3 points for full. Again, this is, from my point of view, story point is about complexity, effort, uncertainty. 3 things. Is it complex? Are there so many unknowns? And effort. It's not so much about hours or days. That's from my experience anyway. But whether you story point or you estimate, okay? Whether you do that, all you're trying to get at is to build a sense of quantifying effort, right? I mean, business doesn't care about your story point. Neither does a customer. I mean, a customer won't be asking you, what's the story point for building me a payment gateway, right? Is the result. And again, those are things which I will highlight as we go along. We get too hung up on, you know, the mechanics, and we almost play down the outcome, you know, the mechanics. Is it this, is it that? So from your experience, how many have I missed out any? Can you story point an epic? Again, what does an epic mean? What does it mean? Maybe you can. So if we story point, we don't use t-shirt, we don't use estimation, and something qualifies as an epic, well, why not? Maybe it's a 22 or 40 or 80, in fact. Okay, does it? I don't think he hurts anyone. I don't think it matters. It's just what you're trying to get at is a sense of, you know, having a shared understanding of the amount of effort that goes into a particular piece of work. So if you see it that way, and again, that should be the mindset, because without that mindset, you get on projects and they're doing very strange things. And if you're not careful, you're fighting all the time, because those things can come off very ridiculous and anti-pattern. Okay, we're story, oh, that's fine, but is it uniform across board? Okay, so we can't be story pointing today and be estimating tomorrow. That won't work. Okay, let's move on. I think two of them are interwoven. Can you story point an epic? Why not? From your experience, how many of those organizations perform sprint refinement followed by? Okay, so again, we'll get to this. Sprint refinement followed by sprint planning. Some will say is backlog refinement. Again, those are just names, right? The outcome, where you want to get to, and again, I go back to this point. Thinking outcomes, okay? Thinking outcomes. Let me give an example. If you want to land a job, you need to have passed an interview, maybe second, third, or in fact, first interview, right? Now, for you to get an interview, your CV must be good enough. And you would have done well in the preliminary interaction with the recruitment agency. Okay, so if you work your way back, a job offer, but you will have done an interview or two, or three in fact, and before then, you'll have had an initial contact with the recruiter. And why the reason why you had that interaction was because your CV was good enough for the recruiter to have found you worthy enough of that initial conversation. So if you work your way back, you're looking at outcomes, okay? Outcome number one, I want my CV to attract enough interest for the recruiter to give me a call. That's the number one outcome. Then when I get the call, what's the outcome I'm looking for? To land an interview. So between those two milestones, a million things could happen. A million things could happen. Some could call it CV review. Another person could think that is a CV boot camp. You know, those are just the mechanics. The outcome is what matters. And I see this ever so often, people being caught up in the mechanics. What does it matter if you call it sprint review or sprint, okay, maybe not sprint review, refinement or backlog refinement? It used to be grooming. Some people said the grooming phrase leaves much to be desired. So it's now refinement. I've seen where refinement, estimation, sprint planning was on the same meeting. And I've seen it done differently. Okay, it doesn't bother me because I know that for you to take stories into your sprint backlog, one, you needed to have refined the stories. Two, you needed to have estimated those stories. Now, how and when those events happen is really inconsequential because you fixated on the outcome. So while some will do it at different times, some will lump it all up, you know, and some would even give it a different name. So that's my mindset, and that's why when I see so many flavors, and it doesn't bother me anymore. You know, I just want to know why we're doing this. Okay, what's the outcome? What's the aspiration? What would come out of this? I hope that answers the question. Secondly, can you explain how you can use retro to find out why your team is unproductive? That's a difficult one, because who comes to a retro admitting they were unproductive? Although somebody could bring it up, a Scrum Master could bring it up, and maybe on the average, Mr. So-and-so, who is a developer, would consume an average of 13 story points in a sprint. And it turned out that he could barely complete 5. A retro might be an opportunity to discuss that. You know, again, it depends. That will be a function of the maturity of that team, how long they've been together, how much trust and rapport they've built over time. If it's a toxic environment, that might be a difficult conversation. That's my personal sentiment. You know, somebody else might have a different view. Yes, the presentation itself is at top of the, let's let him, oops, I don't know that.
Oh, I think it's suggesting that maybe you don't know how much you have on your presentation. If you'll be able to work with that while you are still at the same time, I mean, attending to the question.
Don't worry about that. Trust me, I would breeze through my presentation very quickly.
Oh, that's.
So this is where I was. Can I ask for us to, in maybe 1 or 2 sentences, if you can type in the chat, what does agile, what does it mean to you? If you can I just would like to, when you say agile or agility, what exactly? So when you say, or when somebody says, oh, that's a very agilely mature team, or an agile-centric organization. Okay, I've got 10, okay. Quick, malleable, high efficiency, flexible, a steady and speedy way of doing things, efficient, constantly adapting, silo-free, active, faster delivery, smart and fast, move quickly. You know, you can move quickly even with your waterfall. You can do waterfall very speedily as well. Flexible and efficient ability to deliver value to customers in chunks. Flexible environment, very flexible. Okay, swiftly adaptable. Yeah, bit by bit. Now, you can do things bit by bit and still not be agile. Yeah, bit by bit doesn't necessarily align with the Agile philosophy. Responsive, open communication, adaptive and responsive, and so on. Oh, fantastic feedback. Welcome, Jane. Thank you. Right, okay, so this is what I have. I think the theme kind of fit into each other. But I think the core things are the fact that you're delivering value and you're delivering it often. Okay. Now I can deliver value, but it could take me a year to deliver value. Okay. And let's face it. You can be agile in all situations. Your context may just not lend itself to agility or agile way of working or agile methodology of releasing your software or product. Okay. There's no beef or malice to it. It's just what it is. I mean, imagine a Boeing 747. Now, how can you deliver value if you were Boeing? How can you deliver value to your customers as an airplane manufacturer? Can you deliver value in bits? I would like to hear your response. Would you be able to deliver value in bits? Nope. Nope. Yes, somebody said yes. Okay. Yeah, you can. Okay. I would love to learn. So you're rolling out a new Boeing 747 or an airplane. Now, how do you deliver value? Okay, iPhone, please give us an example. Yes, just like I can't. Oh, I can't. Can somebody unmute Okiyama? Oh, hi. Hi.
Okay, for me, I initially, okay, this is okay. I initially said no, but on the second thought, I said yes. It's just like when you manufacture a car, you have different models. You have 2002 models, 2003 models. Now, it doesn't mean that the car is not the initial, product is not in the market, but then you now have versions or upgrades of that same product. So that's why I said yes.
I totally agree from that point of view. But your model one, the very first model, I don't think you can be agile about it, can you?
No, it has to be a waterfall.
Yeah, that was what I meant. So there's no way you can, you can fly a plane or deliver a plane to your customer if the whole plane is not built up. So I get the version one, okay. Series 1, Series 2, Mercedes-Benz, GLC, GLX, and all that. Yes, but the whole product has to be built and delivered before you can even enjoy the value. So some things you can function. Yeah, I get that, but the context my argument is predicated upon is that before you consume it at all, through user experience and feedback. Okay, I accept. Everyone has been provided with permission, but kindly be to raise oh, okay. Okay, I think that's from the moderator. Right. Okay, so what is Agile? Agile borders on delivering value and often to testing and learning. You test and learn. Shortening feedback loop. You know, because your customer satisfaction is key, you constantly want to strive to exceed the expectation. So you don't want to wait for, again, depending on your domain, depending on the kind of service you provide, depending on, yeah, the kind of product offerings you have. You know, some domains are not as competitive as some other domains. You know, so you really want to feel the pulse and the heartbeat of your customers all the time, because that is critical. So all of this is what agility is all about. Delivering values early or often, testing and learning, being adaptable, responding to change, and most of all, shortening feedback loop. And these are just means. What I find is that most organizations pay more emphasis this becomes immaterial, and all they play emphasis is on this. You know, you can be sprinting, you can have product owners, you can have all of those things and still not close to being agile. And you see it all the time. You're not delivering value, you're not testing and learning, you're not shortening your feedback loop. You can call it whatever you like, but it's not agile because the ethos is not there. So what agile is not? Iterative waterfall is not agile. Okay, we are doing it in bits. It doesn't make it agile. You hear that all the time. You can use all the jargons, we are doing sprint planning, we have a product manager, product owner, we have a scrum master, and all that. It still does not make you agile. I've heard somebody said that, oh, I think we are now agile. We just started putting things on Jira.
No.
Somebody would have to move themselves. I think it's naked. Yeah, so you hear all sorts, you see all sorts in the name of agile. And it will shock you. This is usually coming from very senior people. So again, a classic metaphor. You know, companies thinking they are agile by doing this, building in bits. But that's not agility. This is what agility looks like. You're adding value. So the customer doesn't have to wait till that point, which could be in a year's time, before deriving value, before giving feedback. You know, from day one, your version one, they have something to hold on to. They have something to test. They have something to feedback on. Not this, because this is of no use. This is of no use. This is of no use. So this could take a year. More like this. Maybe not exactly, but you get the sentiment. Any more questions before I move on to the next?
There are questions, please. You can unmute and
or just type
ask your questions or type it. Please, if you're not talking, remember to
shortening. Please explain shortening feedback loop. It just means your time to market is short enough and long enough, quote and unquote, that you are constantly giving or providing value to your customers and you are constantly learning from it. You're not waiting too long. And again, what does too long? Too long in telecoms or too long in telecoms might be short in finance or manufacturing. So it depends on the product offering. It depends on the customer base you serve. It depends on the use cases you're fulfilling. Yeah. So, but the bottom line is that you are constantly close to your customer, their needs, and you feeling their pulse, you're getting their feedback. You know. So you want that to shorten instead of leaving them unserviced and left to their devices far too long. By the time you go back to them, you probably wouldn't find them there because they've seen something novel with your competitor and they've left, you know. Or maybe they were saying something, you were not listening, or you were not picking it up, or there's no opportunity for them to give you that feedback. Who is that? I don't know who that is. From scooter to car, how is that adding value? I said it was a metaphor. I think these are private chats. Anyway, let's move on. So Scrum, a very agile framework. Scrum, as with other framework, again, it will appear as though Scrum is the only agile framework out there. There's no doubt it's about the most popular, but you know, Kanban is punching its weight as well. So is things like XP, pair programming, and extreme programming, sorry, and several others. But there's no doubt Scrum seems to be a cut above the rest. And why would anyone not use Scrum? I like it a lot as well, personally. Again, I won't be dwelling too much on what we already know. These are the pillars: transparency, inspection, adaptation. And this is usually the setup. Scrum talks about the team, the artifact, the ceremonies, which we know too well. And this is where where's the Scrum Master? Somewhere here, part of, this is where they normally sit in an organization. Of course, this could differ considerably. So whilst in some organizations, a Scrum Master could be a very high profile person, in some other contexts, they could, I mean, their sphere of influence is usually within that boundary. And they often might be feeding into a delivery manager or even a project manager. Again, that's what it looks like, which is, I mean, this model has been around for ages. I mean, this pictorial representation. Yeah, so that's that for Scrum. You've got the team, the Scrum Master, the PO, and of course your ceremonies, which we wouldn't go into. Now, I think I should stress the fact that hardly is it that you would have just one Scrum team on a program or in an organization. Usually you have several, and that calls for the need to scale Scrum. And of course, there are several frameworks out there as well. You know, by far my most preferred is Scrum of Scrums. Easy, simple. So usually the Scrum Master in each of the Scrum teams would form another layer, and they will meet often to review dependencies, to sequence the delivery plan, and to coordinate, you know, as the case may be. There are several other models. There's large scale Scrum, which is gaining prominence lately. There's a SAFe, which I hate with a passion. Sorry, that's my personal sentiment. I've never been on a program or project where it wasn't more of a problem and roadblock and bottleneck. I've never been. I've been in an environment where twice where SAFe was, but it's so clunky. So maybe I've just been unlucky. But if I hear SAFe, I'll run away. Again, that's my personal sentiment. Okay, so you've got Nexus, you've got Scrum at scale. Okay, so having said all that, or before I go on, any questions or any thoughts? Moderator, are there any, is anyone raising their hand?
Questions? I think there are some questions now coming up, but before then, we'll also want to know if you would like to have a break, what will it be?
Sorry?
If you would like to have a break, is there going to be a break after
No,
when
I'm
we've
good.
done 1 hour or not?
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay.
Instead of having a break, we could do questions and thoughts and
Okay.
I can't see the questions though. You could just type it. What's the difference between less and scaled agile? I don't know. That's the simple answer. I've only read about less. I've been on scaled agile twice. It was problematic, maybe because it wasn't practiced right. You hear all sorts of strange names like delivery train and all those things, which I find strange and bizarre. Yeah, simple Scrum of Scrums should do it. Well, I guess some people have to justify their certification cost.
I help you read out the questions. Okay.
Yes.
This was a business analyst never intended in agile. If not,
okay. Yes. Okay. That's a good one, because if we go by the Scrum guide, there was no mention of a business analyst. So a product owner does the job of a BA as we know it. He owns the backlog. And what do you have on backlog? You have stories, you have tasks, you have all sorts. So is the owner is accountable, is responsible for the most part, even though anybody can write a story or a ticket and put it on the backlog. But his accountability lies with with the product owner, and he prioritizes what gets done. So that's the simple answer. But hey, we have lots of stuff that is not in the Scrum guide, i.e. the notion of epic. You won't find it in the Scrum guide, but it's widely used. So some things from my point of view are just for a matter of convenience. And again, if you, depending on the scale of the organization and the project on hand, a product owner might be taking on too much, you know. So maybe it makes sense to have a BA to be fully focused on requirement specification, whilst the product owner, you know, looks after some more strategic stuff. Especially when you have a product owner who is looking after multiple work streams or even multiple squads. So again, I think that's the mechanics I was talking about, as opposed to the ethos. Because at the end of the day, you want to meet customers' expectations and needs, and how you go about it, you know. We could argue that there are some methods that are more efficient than others, yes, but maybe at the end of the day, if you arrive at your outcome. Where I work at the moment, I was shocked because there's no notion of a Scrum Master. We don't do Scrum Master. So the Scrum Mastering is shared between the PO and the BA. So there's no dedicated Scrum Master. And I was like, wow, okay, maybe. And are we delivering? We are delivering. So,
okay. So there's some people raising their hands. One person have taken it down.
Okay, let me just whiz through this, if you don't mind. Who decides whether the organization is using StoryPoint? Every Scrum team, so squad should be self-organizing. In theory, on paper, yes, it should be down to the team. But also taking into account what obtains globally, as in enterprise-wide. So you could, usually you might have somebody very senior who looks after, or maybe a delivery manager, or you have an agile delivery, something of excellence that, you know, the kind of the owners and the authors of agile way of working in an organization. So it might be down to them. But in the absence of that, an agile squad should be self-organizing. So I don't see why the squad cannot decide. You mentioned your preference for Scrum or Scrum. How does Scrum differ from SAFe? Simplicity is one. No, there are no complicated parlance and nomenclatures. I think Scrum, I mean, SAFe is rather too heavy. It's not lightweight. And that's my personal sentiment, because you have this, so I can't even recall, because you have something trained engineers and all that, and you know, you have so many people all over the place, carrying big portfolios, and it just stifles flexibility, because everybody is fighting to be seen and heard, and just crippling the work unnecessarily. Scrum of Scrum, you just have your PO, your Scrum Masters, and your team, and you get stuff done quicker. No, nothing too complicated or fancy. Scooter to car. Okay, I'll pass on that one. I don't know what it means. In my opinion, okay, offer simpler, yeah, to scaling Okay, that's fine. If anyone would like to unmute themselves, kindly raise up your hand. Okay. No wonder my PO says is used to writing tickets before. Yeah. I'm a project manager. Is certification needed to land? I don't think so. I think certifications are overrated. I've practiced for 12, 13 years. I don't hold one single Scrum certification, and I don't intend to. If it's your thing, by all means, maybe it could hold its value, but you can pass all the exams and still be very inexperienced. I've come across certified Scrum Masters. I won't say more than that. Okay, I'm done with the questions.
Okay, can we give opportunity to people raising their hands to?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Please, T-Boy.
T-Boy.
Boys, yeah. I think you raised your hand first. Please, can you go ahead with your question? Please, Akaima, could you help us look at the people who are raising their hands and who want to unmute so they can talk?
T-Boy.
Yeah, I can now. I've been able to unmute myself.
Okay.
Yes. Thanks, Aina, for delivering this session. Interesting comment there when you talked about your position with regards to SAFe.
Oh, yeah.
I'm on the contract bid project at the moment, and the nature of the contract is such that whilst we are maintaining the existing system and improving the features, we're also meant to be carrying out transformation in terms of building something new. And this is supposed to be running concurrently. And the idea that I gave to the team was that in the dialogue sessions that we should suggest using SAFe to be able to manage the two different aspects at the same time. So from what you're saying now, it's this. If you were to know that board, you must probably look at me and think, "Nah, mate, we're not doing that." But then, how does Scrum of Scrums fit into this scenario?
One, okay, so now that there are some, I'm assuming that you are building. So did you say you're doing something, you're building and
there's an existing
operational
system that's being maintained whilst we are transforming the system. So over a extent of time, the existing system will be phased out and everybody migrated to the new. But whilst we're still building the new system, we still need to maintain the existing one and at the same time improve it.
Okay, so let's start from maintain the existing one. Now there are two things. Are you doing BAU or are you enhancing? Because you could either be, okay, something is broken, we fix it. A customer calls, they can't do this, you fix it. That's BAU, right?
Yes, that's BAU.
Okay, or you are actively adding functionalities or improving some things on it.
That's right. We're improving stuff on it.
Okay, so two things. Then what's the third one?
So and then carrying out transformation. So we're building something completely new.
Completely new.
Yes.
Okay. So three things going on at the same time. Because you still have your customers and records on that one, you can't just chuck it away.
Exactly.
And ask customers to wait until you build a new one. Okay. Yeah. I think it's a very familiar scenario where I think something similar to that I've been on is we have this platform, but we're migrating it to cloud. And we're reskinning it and we're adding new functionalities as well. So I think it would It would depend on how you set yourself up and whether or not. A classic example would be a squad could focus on doing the fixes. Okay, they could have their own Kanban board or product backlog. And it may be that they have a separate PO or one single PO overseeing all those work streams. Okay. And you could have another team doing the enhancement, while you could have one or more teams doing the bigger transformation. Okay. Now the ideal thing is to, and I'm not saying this as an expert or saying this as the only way, I'm just saying it based on my experience. The ideal thing would be to have different backlogs, right? And coordinate between, because I don't know what your release pipeline looks like, whether you are sharing the same environment, the same code base, and it's got so many ramifications. And if you're sharing a lot of repository, then there's a need to better coordinate so that something is not breaking. So when I go live or I drop a change, it's not going to break what somebody else has done. So to that extent, Scrum of Scrums, the Scrum Masters across, or even the POs across those teams could come together as Scrum of Scrums. It could just be, in my experience, they will usually just have their own stand-up, maybe once or every other day. They come together like a huddle and they discuss what they're doing, their delivery plans, and they just coordinate amongst themselves. Whether, I'll need you to go first, or I'll need something from you, or I'm making a change in this component. Are you doing anything? Is anything on that component on your radar? And that's why they just, collaborate and, call out any dependencies, any impact. And I think it just works beautifully well from my point of view. And I've seen it work with, fairly big enterprise changes. Now, my sentiment about SAFe, it may very well have been because I know very little about it. But the two projects where SAFe was deployed, it was a pain for everybody. Does that make SAFe a bad thing? Maybe not. Maybe it's just been the environment or the practitioners not exactly knowing what they're doing. But it hasn't been a good experience for me. Does that answer your question?
Yes. It definitely gives me another point of view. And so most probably throw open both options really.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
I think somebody else had their hands
up. Okay, Michael.
Yeah, just a quick one.
Michael
so
Phillips.
I've invited some people onto this call who are trying to. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear?
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes, we can. Okay. I can hear you.
I've invited some people. Okay, I've invited some people onto this call who are trying to get into the Scrum Master field, and it just so happened that it's their first time in IT. So how do you think they can best do what they're trying to do, being that they've never worked in IT before and they are trying to get into the Scrum Master field? Thank you.
There's no magic to this. Let me make an illustration. And it wouldn't matter if it's Scrum Master or DevOps or whatever it is. So here's an illustration. This is how Okay. So here is your let's say here's your offer. This is a classic sales funnel, right? So job offer. Okay. Now at the top of the funnel, you you're loading it with applications. Because let's face it, right? Most companies, and I stand to be corrected, they want experience. Okay. And so if you don't have it, you are at a gross disadvantage, because even people with years of experience, solid, verifiable years of experience, they're struggling. You are competing with them. And nobody seems to have the time to, to hire and be training. They want it ready. So imagine this is your sales funnel. You have to load, and I'm assuming you have a decent CV. That's where it starts from. Okay. Now, because it's a ruthless market, right? And nobody knows nobody. You judge based on what is in front of the recruiter. So to start with, like I say, there are some things that are in your control. There are some things that are outside of your control. The things that are in your control are your CV has to be on point. I mean, it will be an aberration if you are using past tense for present tense. You are making grammatical. You've just blown it. You've blown it. Okay. So CV must be on point. Then you are loading the funnel, and it trickles down, because the more you load the funnel, the more your chances. So at every point, where's this thing? So think about it this way. That's one point. That's another point. So let's say this point is the point a recruiter calls you. That first call. Okay. Now, so you can see that it is a function of the number. Somebody else might disagree, but that has been my experience. Interview. You can see that as you go down the sales funnel, things narrow. It narrows down. I mean, pretty much like your sales funnel, 1 million people could visit your website every day, 1 million hits. But how many people check out? How many people buy? Okay, so let's say out of that 1 million hits, only 50,000 select something to buy. Now, out of that, half of them would abandon what they're doing and leave and bounce. So out of the 50,000 remaining, only about 10,000 will put something in the basket. And out of those 10,000, it might just be about 200 people that will click it through and check out and pay. So what you're doing in effect is that you're making your website to be such that maybe searchable through SEO and all of that, to make it, to put it in people's faces so that they can come, and because the more clicks, the more visits, the higher the odds are in your favor for them to click through. It's a numbers game. So like when I used to train, and some of my students would be like, oh, what's going on? I'm not getting calls. And I'm like, okay, how many calls, how many submissions have you done this week? And they say 5. I just want to fall off my seat laughing. Even with my experience, if I'm looking for work, I'm doing an average of 20 applications every day. 20 every day. And I can do that consistently for about 3 weeks before I get calls. Hey, we saw your CV, there's this role. So if you 20 over 10 days, that's 200. And that can translate to about 5 calls. And that 5 calls, maybe 2 translates into hard core interview. And out of the 2 interviews, you get an offer. I mean, if you do the maths, the conversion rate is slim. So if you don't load the funnel at the top, you're at a disadvantage. It's a simple probability and mathematics. But as you load it, then you increase your odds. Okay, and those are the things in your control. Now, an agency rings me up and he says, oh, is that Yinka? I say Yinka in my heavy Nigerian accent. That's not within my control. I can't help. If he doesn't like my accent, then it might end there. But I've done the bit that is in my control. So for him to have rang me up, that meant that he found my CV worthy enough, good enough. There's a potential there. So there's a lot we can do. And for somebody, and again, like I was speaking to somebody last week, apart from these number games, some things can also increase the odds in your favor. If you're on LinkedIn, okay, that just instantly legitimizes that's if you're on LinkedIn and you are linked to certain people, maybe from your previous place of employment you have on your LinkedIn profile, that is a reference right there without anybody even trying. Now you tell me, I need to recruit for a Scrum Master. I put out the advert. I get 200 applications in a few hours, easily. Okay, out of those 200, I do a quick scan, yeah, for keywords, okay? I filter it down to 100. So I've got 100. I can do that within minutes. Now, I do another filter. Only 20 of them are on LinkedIn. You tell me, why do I need to bother about the rest 80? Because they are faceless people. They are not on LinkedIn to start with. Why are they not on LinkedIn? And I understand, and I bet you understand why somebody might not want to be on LinkedIn. We both know that. But we do know. The market does not know and does not understand. So I've had my short list to work with. Why do I have to stress over somebody who's not on LinkedIn? Then they can easily just, okay, Phillips, it said he's worked here, is connected to so-and-so in his LinkedIn profile. You know, I can just privately chat that person up. And they confirm, oh yeah, Philip was my colleague, blah, blah, blah. That's it. It makes the top 5 that I'm going to ring. So there's a lot that we can do to increase our odds. But equally, individual circumstances differ, and I would understand why somebody might not be able to take advantage of things like LinkedIn, given their circumstance. But it's a brutal market. It doesn't understand your circumstance. So that's my 50 cents. So bottom line, CV has to be on point. Then you start applying like crazy, because there are a lot more people chasing one job. And again, be open to, because some will say, I can't do anything outside London. You know, if you're starting off, if it's Dublin, you go and do the job. You know, you go anywhere. And maybe one thing would be, I don't put address on my CV. Because if you put something Southwest London or whatever it is, and there's an opportunity in Manchester, the recruiter might be reluctant. You know, he doesn't even want to have that conversation as to whether or not you're happy to, because already, you know, so why do you have to put something that might potentially be a stumbling block? So that's my, if anybody said there's a magic to it, good luck. I think is a combination of doing due diligence and hard graft. Just is a numbers game to me. Yeah, I mean, if you're experienced and you have skill in certain domains, certain platforms, certain system, that's a completely different thing. But if you're starting out with very little experience or no experience at all, then it's tough. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Okay, you with us? Do you want to find out from Tibo if he still wants to ask another question, or was it the hand he raised before now?
Okay, Tibo. Okay, he's he has taken his hand down.
Oh, okay. So, do you have anything to say now, contribution? Okay, there are no more questions. Maybe you can pick questions from the chat, and if there are none.
Yeah. Okay. So let me just run through this. Yeah. So what should you be armed with? Assuming you've gone through the interview process, you've landed the job, this will be some of your expectations. Oops. Okay. So the soft skill, as with most things, we should project management, rate management, stakeholder management, and be prepared to attend so many meetings. Yeah, because Scrum Masters have quite high visibility within projects and teams. Yeah. And of course, that could be contextual as well. Hard skill. You should be familiar with at least one issue management software. Jira comes to mind. My preference any day. SDLC, software development lifecycle, you should be familiar with it. CI/CD, this is becoming mainstream now. Continuous integration and continuous delivery, kind of DevOpsy, how you do your delivery and environments. And that thing used to confuse me a lot when people start speaking in those jargon. Seat, regression. We do smoke tests. What environment? This, that, repo, and all of those things. Although these are things you could pick up, but if you are an aspiring, I think you should just broaden your horizon and widen your tentacles by reading up on all those things. There are so many incredible YouTube videos you could learn those concepts, and it can stand you out in an interview. Agile principles, of course, agile. You might also, there might be an expectation on you as a Scrum Master to, to mature the team from agile standpoint. Yeah. Specific domain, system, industry, platform experience. I don't know what I mean by that. Career progression. Again, this is not cast in stone. There's I think delivery management is becoming mainstream now, and is almost becoming a natural progression for Scrum Masters. Of course, it will depend on organization as well. So delivery managers they could be very powerful people, high visibility, very high critical stakeholder. And often is the case that Scrum Masters report into them. Head of delivery, agile coach, etc. I think it is up to you to chart your career progression trajectory. And I think that's seem to be, oh yeah, common or deliverables. Classic deliverable, information radiation, things like burn down chart, motivation gauge, springboard. Again, this will depend very strictly, on the organization. But you want to radiate information to your relevant stakeholder in digestible and consumable format. A delivery manager, for instance, might require the average number of bugs in a sprint, the average number of fixes. It could be anything for whatever purpose. So be ready to be able to do that. Yes, common daily issues. Is by no means an exhaustive list. It could go on and on and on. It could be as mundane as somebody bugging you that they've forgotten their password, or dealing with somebody calling in sick unexpectedly and there's a delivery scheduled. My laptop is broken. You need access to a particular environment. You could be coordinating test data. You could be attending meetings. You could be resourcing a delivery cycle. You could be managing hot fixes. And again, I think different organizations would place different demands. In some organizations, it will amaze you on how much paperwork and documentation a Scrum Master is expected to carry out. I remember when I was in D&G, if you plan a release, there's a massive change request log you have to fill and all that. So I think it will vary. Yeah, changes in business priority. dealing with, being behind schedule, and so on and so forth. Of course, you have a list of common interview questions. This, what do you call it? Structured questions, which are quite, in my view, a lot easier than behavioral questions. Tell me a time, tell me a time. That could be very tricky. And that's it. I hope that was helpful.
Oh, thank you so much, Evi. I mean, that's been a wonderful one. And we've gotten a lot from your wealth of experience. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. So are there questions, please? Let the questions.
What is RAID management? RAID is simply risk assumptions in impact and dependencies. We talked about scaling Scrum. So those are things, typical things or themes that are discussed in the Scrum of Scrums. Okay, I'm hoping to release this by next week, but the environment is down, or we need to do something and there's a risk we won't be able to do it. So how does that impact you? Okay, I'll need to adjust my delivery plan to accommodate that and things like that. The soft skill slide didn't display fully. Yeah, I think is the soft skill you would expect, actually. Stakeholder management, communication, presentation, and all that. Nothing novel. Okay, somebody answered that. How do you use motivation gauge? For motivation, it's just to gauge on a scale of, say, 1 to 10. It will vary, or 1 to 5. In my current team, we do that at the end of every sprint. You just feel it, just what's your motivation out of 5? 1 being seriously despondent, and 5 being overtly excited. I always stick with 3. And I don't give reasons when you ask me why 3. Thanks for, okay. How does a Scrum Master add value to the Agile team? On paper, you coach, you mentor, you motivate. So things like, especially if it's a fairly new team and they've not practiced or they've not worked in an Agile driven environment before, then you've got a lot of coaching and mentoring to do. From story pointing to prioritization to ceremonies to daily. Developers don't like daily stand-ups. They feel it's a chore, it bugs them. While some do, some look forward to it because it's an opportunity to emphasize what they did yesterday, what they are doing today, and whether or not there is any blocker. So depending on what you have on hand, I think that would inform to what degree or extent you do your coaching and mentoring and pastoring as well. Oh, I can't log in. Oh, okay. Who is hungry? Who is not hungry? Okay. And things like that. Thanks. Okay. That's fine. Is it advisable to use 1 feet? Oh, man. Okay. Don't tell anyone. I think I have about 5 different CVs, and I'll explain. And the reason is that if I was to put all my experience in one CV, it would be about 10 pages. Like I said earlier, I've been a Scrum Master before. I've been a PO. I was a BA for a very long time. I've done a bit of delivery. So if you crammed all of that into one CV, it can even get the recruiter confused, and they might not even know who you are. Are you a PO, or are you a Scrum Master? Or then I was a lead BA at some point. So depending on the Yinka I want you to see, you can fill in the blanks. But the point is, I can defend every comma and every full stop on my CV because I've actually done it. So I think it's a way of helping the recruiter to see what they are looking for, because if you don't do that and you just put everything together, I mean, it's like they could be lost trying to figure out, you know. So the job requirement might be such that, oh, they need a Scrum Master with 5 years experience. Okay. And you have to, in a way, highlight that on your resume. Otherwise, you may not even stand a chance. So, but if you're starting out or you've not had experience at all, what options have you got? You just got to stick with one resume. But if you've had 5 years, I mean, if you had 5 years experience, I bet you've taken on roles that was not your primary responsibility that you were recruited for. I was an agile coach at some point, but I was a BA, but I was doing agile coaching, and I had to tell my hiring manager that, hey, bro, I think you need to upgrade my job title. And we just laughed it off and said, okay, you guys do the work. So am I going to throw that away? So, but again, you do what works for you. If you see your resume as a product meeting the needs of different, okay, somebody try to answer that. Where is it a motivation gauge? Not quite in Jira. You also mentioned Ado as a management tool. Yes, Azure DevOps, yes. Would you recommend BA moving to product owner? For BAs, product ownership is a logical progression. Now, Scrum Master role, I think it depends on you. If you're like me, I hate anything project management because I feel it's boring. I like everything product management because I feel it's sleek, it's interesting. You're looking at data, you're looking at tech, you're looking at customer, you're looking at competition, you're looking at market, you're looking at, user research. So it's a lot more, for me, it's a lot more fun than timelines and dependencies and risk. And so one is, from my point of view, one is more strategic, another is much more operational. So I think it's up to you. What makes you tick? Please don't forget, okay. Yes, I think that's about it.
Okay. Are there more questions? Not seen any.
Okay.
We've got a couple of minutes, and if you still have any question, it will be good now that we have the opportunity, please.
Oh, where do I get the motivational gauge? Motivational gauge is just something, I don't know how they come up with it, but usually in my workplace, you get a link and smiley faces, and you just click. I think it's one of those inventions. I don't think it's on. I mean, it's no big deal. I could just say, how motivated are you, or how do you feel? And just do some calibration. With smiley face, you know, yeah, like Google Form, yeah. Right, I think that's about it. I hope that was helpful. Yeah, third party's website. Okay, good. And I like the energy and the contributions as well. You know, and I always say this: don't take anybody's word as the Bible. You know, there are just so many variations and variables to all these things. So, as they say, the end justifies the means. So, I'm not one that would say, oh, it has to be done this way. Are you open to, oh man, one-on-one hand holding and mentorship? Not quite, but I mean, if you buzz me with a question, I will answer. There's no doubt. But I'm not the commitment. I can't commit to it. I think that's but I hope to be doing more of this. If it's helping, I'm motivated. If I can, maybe let me not commit to that. Start with once in a month at least, or twice in a month. I'm happy to do this, whatever topic. Yeah, I'll go read up and join it with my experience and share. And if it's useful, hallelujah. Hold on, let me just share my LinkedIn. How do you even get here? Okay, there it is.
I mean, can we have one hand raised?
Yeah, that's
please.
my hand.
Please go for it.
Yeah, please. I was just going to say that, please, that we would really, really hope that anyone who's not in the WhatsApp group can kindly join the WhatsApp group, where Yinka is a lead mentor within our community. And so that when you ask questions of him, he can answer those questions and others can also learn from those questions. But he's a family man. He's also, he's also a professional. And so it would be helpful if any of you that is not already in the community could join the community and then ask any questions that you have of him within the community, so that everyone can learn from his response, because he's already doing so much in the community, of which this session today and the session last week are just they're a gold, they contain a gold mine of information for anyone starting their career as a BA or as a Scrum Master. And I guess you've got more to offer, even product owners. So please join the community rather than bombard him with individual requests for help. that may be helpful to both yourself and to others as well. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good one. Please, okay. Emma, can you amongst these other people to maybe ask questions? Or before that, I will want to find out from our host. Will you still take more questions? There are people raising their hands. Or
if we want to, see this, as you can tell, I'm overly excited doing this. So,
thank you.
But I'm also mindful of the fact that, you know, sessions are planned for particular time.
Yeah.
So let's not abuse it too much. But I'm happy to spend the next 15 minutes taking questions.
Tell me your question. Would be that would be the last question since we don't have more hands up.
For newbies, where do you think they should start from? BA, PM, Scrum. Okay, I started off as a BA. I think along the line, I had contact with Agile way of working. It was a bug that bit me and I've not recovered. I just love it. And, you know, I've seen it practiced so differently and variedly across my projects. And I think that has kind of added depth and perspective to my experience. And I mean, I could spot an anti-pattern from a mile. And, but then for me, it's still not the end of the world if you're achieving the desired outcome. Companies will be at different levels of maturity in their agile journey. I mean, by the books, for instance, an agile team should be maximum of 7 or 9. But I've been on teams where there are 25 people on an agile team, you know. Does it work? It does work. Does stand up take forever? Yes, it does. But we get there in the end. You know, so, I mean, you just learn as you go along. So to the question, I'm not sure. I think it would depend on the individual. You know, some might just not have the flair for meetings and requirements and presenting. You know, some might not be comfortable with that. You know, so it's like chicken and it's like orange and apples. Which one? They are both fruit, but different. So I really can only speak for my experience. I started off as a BA, and I fell into so many things along the line.
Okay.
So I'm not sure that was helpful. What's the WhatsApp?
Thank you so much. Tell me, do you have, can you quickly give us your question so that we can allow you to wrap up?
Okay, mine isn't even a question. I just, thank you for your time. I'm so sorry for my manners. Thank you so much for the time. And thanks to the organizers too. I just wanted to confirm if we're going to get sent this session.
I think it's recorded, isn't it? It is recorded.
Yeah, okay. I think he will
what happened is this session it's been recorded, and then after the session, then Ibukun will post it on the channel so you can access it there. And also it will be posted on the Ladder Back Down YouTube channel as well. So you will get it. Does that answer your question?
I think it does.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, may I add apologies that if you registered via email, then of course you'll get a late link. That may be a bit late, but you'll receive a link to this, follow-up email if you registered via email. So just in case you're not a member of the WhatsApp group. But I'd just like to, I'm sorry, I know I've written it, but I'd just like to say that, you know, Yinka, you're just an incredible human being, because this is the second time, as I said at the beginning, that you've, last week it was a 5-hour drive. And this morning, I don't know how many hours you'd already driven before you rang to say that you're going to somewhere, and then you're then making a 5-hour return drive up to London. And yet you made it on time. You are just such an incredible person, an incredible human.
Thank you.
Oh,
And yeah, really, really appreciate you, because I couldn't do that, you know, with the best will in the world. You know, I'd be snoring in my bed if I'd, you know, driven for an hour, you know, in this heat. So we're really grateful to you. We really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Is a no.
Yeah, no,
yeah,
that's a lot.
I appreciate that as well.
Thank you, and we want to appreciate you. In fact, we cannot appreciate you enough for your time and your passion, the wealth of experience you have passed on to us this evening. We really appreciate your efforts.
Anytime.
And thank you so much. And also take the opportunity to appreciate every one of us who've been on the call. Ibiyinka, for this wonderful opportunity you've given us. Okama, my co-facilitator, and any other one who has been part of this, we really appreciate you. And we want to apologize for taking a bit of your time. We know this event is time burst, so it was supposed to have ended at 8 p.m., but this is 6 past 8. So we apologize for that, and hope that
we started 15 minutes late, though. So
yes,
I think we're still within. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, and we've come to the end of the program, and we wish everyone a lovely weekend. And our host, as you travel back to your base, wish you journey mercies.
Thank you so much, everyone. And again, yeah, we started a bit late because I sent the wrong link out to Yinka, so it wasn't actually because of his 6-hour drive. He would have made it on time if I hadn't sent the link to a previous meeting. But I'm just astounded that, yeah, really astounded that you can just sit here for 2.5 hours and just be talking to us so casually after driving for so long. So we do appreciate you. You know, we don't take this opportunity for granted, even though you said that you'll come back again and again. Yeah, we still appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Welcome.